Aaron Sci-Fi slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5 on the Evil FB Network. YouTube, check us out, subscribe, type in Newswire, Roy Blecker. You'll see my nice, smiling, shining face, of course, which on the matter at KMET 1490 at the bottom of the hour as we usually do. Lots of surprising. Donald Trump's DOJ's in an indictment frenzy. Maybe Pam Bondi was a problem. Maybe Todd Blanche wasn't blocking everything, as some may have said. We'll get way into that. The average Californian saves $600+ per month when they bail out of California just on housing costs. We'll have the report on that ridiculous registration fees in the state of California, out of control. The amount it costs to register a 20-year-old vehicle in California is like 6 times higher than a brand new vehicle in almost every other state. We'll catch up with this, the pulling out of Qatar, of OPEC, and much, much more, but the lead story of the day. Profiles in corruption. There you see Mr. Corey Jackson. Built a ominous, some say odious, stake in political and nonprofit career in the city of Moreno Valley when he came here about 12, 14 years ago. First got on the traffic safety committee of the city of Moreno Valley, say around 2011, 2012. He came from Rialto. Ran for city council in 2014. Very campaign I was involved with Jeff Gaiba, who eventually beat Corey Jackson by 7 votes in one of the closest elections, maybe the closest election in the city of Moreno Valley. He went on and he started Sigma Beta Xi, which became known as SBX, a nonprofit mentoring students, kids, starting in Moreno Valley. Some say under very ominous circumstances. Finally became elected in 2020 to the County Board of Education in Riverside, ROCE. Became assembly member in the 60th District in 2022 and currently holds that position. We start this in 2021 when Corey Jackson is an elected member of the Riverside County Board of Education, the only 2 bodies that are countywide in Riverside County, the Board of Supervisors and the Riverside County Board of Education, which only geeks like me have even ever heard of. Supervisors obviously are much more known. Assembly members, state senators, even city council members, school board members. No, hardly anybody even knows we have every county in the state of California, all 58 of the County Board of Education. They wield a lot of power over your schools. And we'll deal with that. We dealt with a little bit with some of the stuff that Temecula finally got involved with. Antoine Adelane, Claudia Ramirez, and a lot have been doing that. We'll get to that in another day. So he's on that in 2021. He starts some talks with the County of Riverside. He's also CEO, founder, one of the founders of Sigma Beta Xi, or SBX. The County of Riverside, and there's this big pot of money $500 billion, $550+ million that came in the ARPA funds from Joe Biden for vagrant housing, housing for the homeless, all these tear-jerking, no feel good, we're going to fix everything stuff. So, in the negotiations for about a year, the county awards SBX Corey Jackson, CEO and head, along with being a member, a political electee, all across the board in the county of Riverside. This, how do you get these backdoor deals? So they cook up this scheme to buy 3 houses, which I'm very familiar with. They're just down the street from the studio, about a mile. Built 60 years ago. Family was well known back in the day when we were all a bunch of redneck hillbillies out here. And we're going to turn them into, homeless, foster youth homeless, and maybe a vagrant or two. We're going to take it into 24 beds and 12 bedrooms and 3 houses, and we're going to do all this great wonderful things. Technology Center, $3.9 million. I'm still going to contend today. We have some dispute, and we'll get into that over the numbers. So the county passes it. They buy the property. It's under SBX's name. And if they perform under the contract for 55 years, they own it outright. So it passes in April of 2022 with the guarantee, or the contract says, this thing's supposed to be up and operational, 90% occupied, which to me, if there's 24 beds, it should be 21 occupied, which I believe has never been the case. 4 or 5 years later. Up and operational. So we got wind of this was coming in a year later. Well, in November of 22, Corey Jackson gets elected Assembly Member, 60th District, Moreno Valley, Paris, San Jacinto, Parts Amet, Nuevo, areas like that is the district. So he resigns the SBX thing, turns it over to Daryl Peden, one of the co-founders, and Zwinga, or whatever her name is, and so on, and he goes on to be Assembly Member. Daryl Peden takes leadership in bringing this project to fruition. So we come in June of 2023. There's this thing from Inflection Point and a $10 million return home key project that they want to apply for, when involve the city of Moreno Valley's got to apply for it with them, and we're going to get a $10 million vagrant housing thing. The consent calendar, we're going, what in the hell is this? Later, Ed Delgado and I think Elena Baca, Santa Cruz council members, 2 weeks later on a Sunday. And they're like, pass it in. We come back and we find out that it's really SBX. That it was, if not totally, almost impossible to find out from the original report when I'm saying, hey, what the hell is going on? And again, they totally ignore what I said. And we were on there Sunday, and Daryl Peden makes a bunch of accurate, got shovel-ready projects. His project that was supposed to be done, completed, 90% done. The one Corey Jackson initiated and got through the County Board of Supervisors is growing weeds. And dilapidated, the vagrants are in there stealing electric boxes. It just looks like it looks like something out of the ghetto. Let's say blown out Detroit. So we go down the county and say, on top of that, well, from some of the stuff in Moreno Valley, what the heck's going on? Can we get some, what the hell's going on? You need to take a real good charge look at this. Have you read this? This is just, we're only into year 2 and we've got, what, almost 3 years to go. We're going to follow up more on this and many other things as we rip on today's show. It's going to be a real barn burner. Yes, it is. You have no choice but to stay tuned. And that's correct. Get back to the Moreno Valley. At that meeting, who else but Ulysses Cabrera, mayor of Moreno Valley, headed the October surprise, illegally trying to appoint, or legally pointing LaDonna Jemison to the council and all the stuff that Mayor Baby Jesus has tried to pull off, who's financed his political, at least his mayor career, by Corey Jackson, one of, if not his biggest contributor in 2022 when he ran for mayor, and Corey was running for assembly. How else did this stuff get snuck through? So now they're asking for $10 million in involved Moreno Valley, and we've got that. Making representations, they have shovel-ready projects at SBX. We come find out that isn't even close to being the case. So me and Bob went down there to the County Board of Supervisors in a couple of weeks, and then, as you're going to find out, public records request that. Gets to November. Now, I defy you to say anyone at the County Board of Supervisors, 4 of them are still on there, including Eckstein Gutierrez, who voted for this extension, gave them a 1.5 year extension to get it out, get this thing done. It's already 6 months behind, and they're barely even starting work. They blame the city. I go talk to the city, and they're saying, you know what, that's full of ass. Oh, they blame EMWD. They blame this. It's all everybody's fault. Inflection point. Tyler Middleshed. Go back and look in the 460s on Corey Jackson City Council race, and that name comes up. This is supposed to be their big consultant that's doing that, and they're paying him, I believe, my recollection is correct, $200,000. And this thing starts blowing apart as soon as they're doing it. So they get the extension, the county, and how could you not know? This project looks corrupt, got graft, insider dealings, child leering center, all written all over it. Oh, we're assured we're going to watch it like they promised when they started. Oh, we're going to help these boys out. They're not experienced. We're going to keep a close monitor on this. There was a promise made in April of 22 when this thing all went down. How could you not look at this and say, hey, I went down there and said, cut your losses, get rid of these guys. And I said it there. Talk to Mike Walsh, Eckstein's guys. Cut your losses now. I'm not saying you're into it. Get somebody else in there that can do this. No, we're going to extend them. Give staff the authority to extend them 1.5 years. Just on their signature. No vote of the board, nothing. No monitoring. No reports. No nothing. Well, by a little over a year later, the reports were getting SBX is looking insolvent, especially on this project. June of 25, the liens are hitting like crazy, $500,000 worth. Today, Corey Jackson, political corruption, touched off. Another $1.7 million the county passed today. Taking it out, taking food and shelter out of the homeless and the needy that they had to get from other funds to try and finish this project. and eliminate SBX from any involvement. We're going to get into the videotape, as they say. At the hearing, and I will admonish the county, Karen Spiegel, the board, Jeff Van Wagelen, staff reports should be read before we make public comment, but that wasn't the case. The first speaker is the aforementioned very famous Moreno Valley gadfly, Bob Palomares. We thought, here we go, Bob Palomares. Hopefully, here we go.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Bob Palomares. I'm out of Moreno Valley, and I'm glad to see this to come to its conclusion. Of course, at the cost of $1.7 million to finish the project. I was here back in July 18th of 2023 when I made the statements that warned you about SBX.
Back to 23, at that same meeting we mentioned, there's Bob Palomares. It's on videotape. We're down there saying, hey, you got a humongous problem out here. You better start looking into it. If you haven't been paying attention. And I gave him, even if you want to give him a mulligan, which happened up to that point, July 18th. How did it progress almost 3 years later to this?
That they were unqualified. But of course it went forward. And 1 year later, they were already supposed to have completed their contractual agreement with the county, which failed. And they got extension after extension. And it seems to me that SBX was never vetted. No one ever looked into their qualifications. And this is the result that it
makes it, no one, well, they did admit. Back in 22, they said these guys, no experience. They didn't hire anybody who was qualified, I believe. Let's get this Tyler Middleshet or whoever was running the show or their consultants they hired that we paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to make sure that we didn't wind up in this situation. They were warned multiple times, not just once, time after time after time, and they kept doubling down on this.
It's costing us more money to finish the project, and they're taking money from other programs to do it. And
$1.7 million that was earmarked for emergency homeless shelter, housing, needs, cleaning up the vagrants, gone, is getting flushed down the toilet to pick up this mess.
I would just warn you that if another organization or nonprofit comes in and applies to run this, because SBX also goes as inflection point. So be aware, because if you see that name on the application or whatever, that could be them. They tried that in the city of Moreno Valley, having the city staff, of course, because of the ties that the city of Moreno Valley mayor has with Corey Jackson.
There it is. That's the value of guys like Bob Palomares, his lovely wife, Hurricane Louise, and many of us that have been over the years that keep going to the meetings. So you start putting the deck chairs together of how deep the corruption, the swamp is just not in Washington, D.C. It goes from the District of Criminals to Moreno Valley and all points in between.
They were trying to get an application through the city staff for $10 million until two of our council members spotted it and questioned it. And this application was costing these people, SBX, but they were going by inflection point, $65,000 for the application, which they didn't even have. So it was a waste of time of the city resources. So I just warn you, be careful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is where the investigation that I called for really needs to go in. Who did they ask the $65,000 for? The application. Again, and this is in July of 23. When that transpired, 6 alarm fires, air raid sirens should have been going off in the county building. There's something radically wrong with this whole project and whatever's been involved. That's the job of staff. If the politicians are corrupt as hell, staff is supposed to be saying, hey, this is going wrong. No, they kept perpetuating this. That's the first one. We got more video clips we'll pick up when we join the Mighty Met KMET here in a few minutes. I want to cover a few other things. Debate, second one, is going to start here in a few minutes. You can catch it of that or on the archives, which I suggest because you don't want to miss the show of that. So, and it'll be there. But this is the first one Tony Villar is in. And Katie, the psycho chick Porter, is not attending. Why? I believe, and I think the evidence will show. Julie Watts, the one that took the video, or that had the interview with psycho chick Katie Porter, where she's asking her the question. And she says, I'm calling this. I'm not answering 27 follow-ups. I'm calling this interview. This is ridiculous, yada, yada, yada. And that started the really inflection, and then the video that was released of the get out of my effing shot when a staffer's in her little, maybe because she's in the background, she might take a little attention off the attention whore, Katie Porter. He'll be in the debate. Katie Porter won't. The next one, I think CNN will have Katie Porter and Tony Villar. And I get it, there's people, Democrats or whatever, will not vote for Republican. We are promoting Antonio Villaraigosa to keep, and because we need to keep the Democratic vote scattered so we can get Steve and Chad in on the top two. Indictment frenzy is torching off in the District of Criminals under acting Department of Justice Attorney Todd Blanche after Pam Bondi was fired. Ex-Fauci advisor David Morans was indicted, holy cow, for the COVID con? Oh, really? After the Southern Poverty Law Center, now the Comeys are getting the shaft again, or the legal indictments again. Now Todd Blanche and the Department of Justice are indicting a top Fauci official. Here's the Fox News report.
Former top advisor to Dr. Anthony Fauci now facing criminal charges. This over an alleged cover-up involving research into the origins of COVID. Rich Edson on this story. Intriguing, Rich. What you find out there in Washington?
Yeah, it is, Bill. The Justice Department has charged David Morans, a doctor, with conspiracy, claiming he concealed federal records to counter evidence that COVID-19 may have leaked from a lab in China, all to help restore a controversial coronavirus grant. Morans, a former aide to Dr. Anthony Fauci, testified before the House's COVID Select Subcommittee nearly 2 years ago about emails he'd sent in February 2021, claiming that he'd learned to make emails disappear after he received Freedom of Information Act requests.
Ever delete or attempt to delete a federal record?
No, but let me explain why. When I came there in 1998, we were instructed to delete emails or to move them into PST files frequently because they jammed the computer.
The Justice Department says Morin's used his personal Gmail account to exchange non-public information. The indictment also claims an unnamed co-conspirator gave Morin...
Does this sound like Hildebeest, Hillary Clinton, and the private servers, and then this, and all that you get to the evil Donald Trump? I mean, they tried to stop him from being president in 16. We have the whole enchilada. Then they created the COVID con so they could get the mental cripple Joe Biden in. That screwed us on this whole ARPA fund thing and that we're talking about earlier. And the inflation and everything. Then Trump gets back in, and we're doing all the blocking again of all this whole crap. We had to make it too big to rig. And now the swamp is coming back. And what do? Oh, I didn't do it. Oh, yes, you did. Or it appears to be. Or you said you did. Deleting emails and stuff. This stuff is ridiculous. We can only hope, and I hope it's very soon, that the indictments for Anthony Fauci come down. And maybe they're pulling this to get, see if they can cut a deal and turn state's evidence with this guy Morin's. To get the bigger fish on top. That's usually how this works. We hope that's the case. If Todd Blanche is doing this, then a lot of the reports that have been going on may not have been even close to being accurate, but we shall see.
Morin's whine for his, quote, behind-the-scenes shenanigans, then suggested he could push scientific commentary in a prominent medical journal advocating that COVID-19 had natural origins. That's a competing claim with the lab leak theory. The indictment says the co-conspirator could also provide meals at top restaurants in Paris, New York, and Washington, D.C. In April 2020, the NIH terminated that back coronavirus grant awarded to EcoHealth Alliance, who then contracted the Wuhan Institute of Virology to conduct that research in China. From the start of the pandemic, its president, Peter Daszak, worked to discredit any theory that COVID-19 had leaked from that lab.
Of course, we heard, it came from the bat market in Wuhan and all this. Oh, no, that CIA report in 2017 that said that they were telling them, hey, get down here and look at what the hell's going on. This is a bad deal. Oh, no, then. This stuff is absolutely ridiculous. The UAE, I think I said Qatar earlier, so we'll correct that. United Arab Emirates is pulling out of OPEC. That's a big, like it says, that's a big deal. OPEC produces 40% of the world's oil supply. UAE is the third biggest in OPEC. That's the first break, I think, in the cartel. A cartel OPEC have artificially kept oil prices high for over 50 years. So maybe DJT has a few aces in the hole in this stuff that we're not getting or that we don't know about yet. So again, just like with the Todd Blanche Ponder or enchilada, sometimes what you think
Got
is
about a minute, Roy.
is not necessarily. As Sean said, we'll be joined by the KMG here in about a minute. We'll get back to the political corruption du jour of Corey Jackson and the whole SBX project. And the
30 seconds.
fraud and political corruption, as we said, It isn't just in Minnesota. It isn't just in the District of Columbia. It isn't just in Austin, Texas, or Moreno Valley itself. It's about time we stomp the liberal crap out of it.
Here we go, 10 seconds.
Gotta band together and totally hoe down around.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the aforementioned AM band. Join your vast video audience in the EVP Network, YouTube. Check us out, subscribe, type in IE Newswire, Roy Blecker. You can get my nice smiling, shining face on that. United Arab Emirates pulling out of OPEC, the cartel that's kept oil prices high for 50 years. Maybe Trump's got a few aces in the hole in this whole deal he hasn't released yet. Remember the George Strait song? You always got to have an ace in the hole. Department of Justice, under Acting Director Todd Blanche, seems to be on an indictment frenzy. Donald Moran's, one of Anthony Fauci's chief lieutenants, got an indictment coming down today. Hopefully, that's to put him under the interrogation light, and he will turn evidence against Anthony Fauci, who needs to be in prison, at best, for the rest of his days on the top side of the grass. We just are just under all sorts of that. More's breaking on the Central, or the Child Leering Center. Federal agents just walked out with 20 boxes of a raid swarming that, of the Quality Leering Center. Things seem to be happening. Maybe they, sometimes just things don't happen at the pace or the timeline that we would like. It would be great if it did, but, as they say, especially, and there's probably no truer words have ever been spoken, the wheels of justice turn slowly. And probably for most cases, and it's a good reason. So we have positive aspects that at least gives us hope. We covered a lot in the first half hour. Profiles in political corruption. Corey Jackson, our assembly member out here in Moreno Valley, Paris, San Jacinto, parts of Hemet, Nuevo, Romaland, the rural, as much as we call it, what's left of it in California. We had another breakthrough exposure of our political insider, at best, potentially fraud, from the likes of Assemblymember Corey Jackson, Moreno Valley Mayor Ulysses Baby Jesus Cabrera, and the whole crew that have been screwing this area true blued and tattooed. We've been dealing with Corey Jackson out here for 12, 15 years. Auspicious dealings with the school district and kids. Now Corey Jackson, and I believe with an assist from Baby Jesus, Ulysses Cabrera, who funded the main funder of his 2022 mayoral campaign in Moreno Valley, have been complicit in taking $1.7 million out of the hands of needy, homeless people, emergency homeless housing. There's a mom who's just living in a car with 3 kids, needs a voucher to stay, ain't gonna get it because of this guy. In the project they did, going back, starting 5 years ago, on very, again, if there was ever a project that screamed egregious, outrageous, political corruption, and doomed to failure, this one was it. We sunk $3.9 million into it. 5 years later, the county of Riverside is taking this project back and having to dump $1.7 million into it. Out of these other funds, after we got, there's some free money that came from federal government. No. We're paying for that plus interest. Those ARPA funds that Biden and all that, we're paying for it in the inflation and all our goods. You're paying for it in the increased costs of gasoline and groceries and housing. That dingalings like this with their stupid, idiotic policies that are killing the future of the people, the kids, and the future generations, they say they're going to help. They're trashing them daily. Again, it's beyond ridiculous. We had Bob Palomares, as we're going through the 5-year deal. We went through it all. This is a public testimony. We had Bob earlier. You can check it out. Here's yours truly this morning at the County Board of Supervisors on the bankrupt, ill-fated, taking food out of homeless kids and parents just trying to survive. Just trying to make it to the next day, just so they can be political or vaulted superstars in how good we're doing. Here we go. In my view, when I became aware of this project, it screamed of egregious graft, political corruption, insider dealing, some of the worst public policy you could ever see. $3.9 million going down the toilet, 1.7 more to people that you keep saying that you're trying to help. The homeless, emergency housing is going down the drain now to try to bail us out of this. I did you the 160K units. At 24 beds, that would be $3.9 million. Brand new, not 60-year-old housing rehab. Well, they were going to put 2 per bedroom in. So that means only 12 units. This project, as proposed and passed by the county, should have been a maximum of $2 million. Yet you approved $3.9 million. Let's look at what was happening when this started, or for the evidence that I have seen. In 2021, Corey Jackson, a member of the only other county board elected, the County Board of Education here, approached the county, and then a year later, they approved this project in April of 2022. Supposed to be completed and done by June of 23 and 90% occupied. What Mr. Palomares found, and me and others after that in July, was a bunch of weeds, a dilapidated project. You heard him and me come up here, and then you saw evidence for 5 months I put in front of you, and then you extended this project in November of 23 for what, a year and a half, 2 years? And we told you this was going to happen. In 25, it appears from your report, you were informed it looks like SBX is going insolvent. In June of 25, the liens of $500,000 started flying. We're here at this point. Again, you're taking now $1.7 million in emergency and homeless housing funds and stuff to try to complete this, which means it's going to be 3 times as much as if we built this stuff brand new. And that's if you can do it there. That's why I've called for a complete investigation. Every document in 30 days opened up before this thing is passed or that's amended to this, because we do not need this happening again. We want to talk about this? All of this money comes out of our dollars, whether federal or not, and you guys have done this. It's criminal. Prove me wrong. Corey Jackson, Daryl Peden, JVW, Karen Spiegel, Exton Gutierrez, Chuck Washington, Jose Medina. The list goes on. Prove me wrong. We have more. Mike Walsh, Deputy Director of Housing and Workforce Solutions, which this should have been, the staff report should have been before we spoke. Here we go.
Mike Walsh, Assistant Director at HWS. I would probably ask to put the video on of all the good work that we do as HWS before this item. But this item today is a place where we don't necessarily want to be at as well. But this is why this was originally approved back in April of 2022, why we do these as loans and we don't do them straight as grants. Why? And people ask, like, well, why do you do that? Because if something goes wrong, we have recourse to basically step in and to foreclose on the property.
Mike, everyone, why didn't you do that after 1.5 years and you saw this thing was going sideways? Big time. Why didn't you step in then before we're at this point? I could see you could probably have saved at least $500,000. And you put these poor construction companies under the gun, under the guise, not getting their money.
So we, throughout this process, have been trying to work with the developer. SBX prior to this was doing work through the continuum of care, providing services and moving forward with projects. We had recently done a similar process in the city of Riverside, Project Legacy with True Revolution, where an organization that was historically a service provider stepped in and developed a project and now is up and running and is successful and is to be seen as a model up and down the state.
True Evolution, which has been back with the Rainbow Pride thing that we stopped. These things got to be completely like the Rainbow Pride was so egregious, $900,000, $800,000, and they're all over the basis as a nonprofit and political, this, that, and the other. Woohoo, Corey Jackson, maybe, or True Evolution. This stuff is, again, all the good work. And I'm saying my view, my 80,000 feet view, the only reason you catch the Quality Leading Center or the Rainbow Prides or the SBX is they're so blatantly corrupt that it's so obvious, and they still try to defend this, and they still try to do it time after time. Here's more from Mr. Walsh.
So another group came forward with a proposal for a project. At the time, we reviewed it, moved forward as a three-bedroom home. When they moved forward and started through the entitlement process, this is just development pieces, and this is why we always advise people to really think before you become a developer of all the different things. They're coming to find out several of the buildings that were located on the property were unpermitted, that delayed the entitlement process to get through those sort of pieces. So we granted them additional time. They went out on their own and got additional funds through the state of California to expand the project to add on 2 ADUs. Well, by adding on those 2 ADUs, that now kicked up the cost of the project for connection to sewer. And that's really when things started to get into trouble for the property. So we are at this point right now where the 3 homes that were originally approved by this board have been operating and people have been living there. There's been to date 13 residents have gone through.
Okay, the original contract called for 90% completion, 90% occupied of 24 beds. How did you even come even when we were close to this? How did you approve this? How did it get to this point? Was nobody checking? Nobody who looked at this and said, you know, if you try to do this, because the scope of it, it's on 4 acres. You got 3 houses on it and an old tin building. Oh, their whole project from the Moreno Valley to finally getting these ADU funds and everything from the state, from who pushed that? If I was laying money, Assemblymember Corey Jackson. And now it's blowing apart and you're taking food and shelter from homeless kids to paper over this screw up.
Through there, 4 of those have already graduated on to permanent housing in other locations. The reason why we're recommending for the completion of this project rather than just foreclosing and selling and getting back the investment of the county is because we recognize the need for these types of beds are absolutely critical, not just for the transition age youth that are living here. That it's not, I would wish it was only $160,000 to complete a brand new unit in this county. If to build a brand new unit, we're seeing is up to $500,000.
So we're going to reconcile the numbers and whoever is correct. This even makes it worse. 3 times more than what I said. $500,000 for a 1-bedroom, 400 square foot apartment. You can buy for $500,000. You could buy a single family home in Moreno Valley today. And they're doing this and they're saying it affordable. Look at what you're saying. All of you. You're crushing the future of everyone. Of anyone's ability to own a home or start a family. No, you don't think I'm kidding when their view is you in a 200 square foot cubicle in a 100-story high rise.
The unit. So this coming in, keeping units, preserving units, keeping them in place is of the utmost importance. And if we were to foreclose on this property, the subcontractors that are on this property that have done work.
This is a humongous cluster foxtrot. And again, it has to get to these points. Rainbow Pride, Quality Learning Center, SBX. To get to this, to where we can show that, hey, this stuff is this is so egregious. There is no excuse, explanation, and I invite anyone to come in here and prove me wrong, that this isn't just flat out graft corruption, insider dealing, if not, as I said, criminal.
Would get wiped out through the foreclosure process. So small subcontractors that are located within this county would be out that level of investment as well. So that's why we're here before this board to move forward with a foreclosure to take the property back, but allow us to reconstitute the project, finish it out, find a new operator on the project to make sure that these beds.
Holy freaking bejesus. My bud, Chuck Washington, supervisor, after Mike Walsh's comments, had this to say.
Just kidding.
You didn't just say that.
I know. No, it's not his fault. And it occurs to me that Roy is more right than he was wrong. wrong, but it's
There's Supervisor Chuck Washington. As best a compliment as he could come up, I bet Roy was more right than he was wrong. And if I was low on the cost per unit, and again, that's just making the situation, I believe, worse and proving the point, the overall point. And I will say the only reason I could have been wrong, like I said, is because we're not getting accurate reports and information and numbers like the report that was filed with this project.
seems like the louder he says it, the more right he is.
I guess I got to turn up the volume because I guess the louder I get, the more right I get, according to Supervisor Chuck Washington. We need to make this into a sound clip.
We've spoken to Roy throughout this process, and we've participated in a number of public records requests and made available on any number of different documentations related to this process. And Roy's a volume shooter, so he makes some.
Yeah. So it says net county counts 1.7, but under source of funds, I'm a little confused. For example, CDBG is not.
Yeah, so this falls into the category of $1.7 million is not one source of money that we have lying around in one bucket. So we're having to pull resources from a number of different pools to cover the full levels of cost. So it's not going across the different divisions of HWS and putting out the hat and see who can throw in.
Okay, so, but those programs then are taking a hit.
Yeah, so again, to Roy's original point, these are dollars that could have been spent on other projects or other sort of initiatives that we're having to invest here.
Yeah.
So again, he's not wrong there.
He's not wrong. $1.7 million. Corey Jackson, SBX, County Board of Supervisors, are taking food out of needy people. The ones they say, well, Victor with his crying the crocodile tears, and and Jose Medina, we're going to help, and others. It's just so infuriating. And you have to push the point and run 5 years to finally get to the truth of the matter. The evil, and in my opinion, evil Corey Jackson, and I'm probably being nice. How cold of a heartless person do you have to be willing to stomp on kids, to promote and keep yourself on the king's throne? You want to talk about no kings? Let's start with Corey Jackson. Let's start with Ulysses Cabrera, right here in the Inland Empire.
The actual sales price was actually $200,000 more than that. So SBX is out at least $200,000 for the project, as well as in terms of some of the invoices that were being billed towards for the project, the county has disallowed those, or not looking to move forward and paying those, and those would be on SBX and their contractual relationship with whoever they had when those agreements.
Okay, so they will be
forward.
held responsible for those.
That would be between them and whatever people they were contracting with, but those were pieces we were only reimbursing or looking to come to this board for reimbursement for direct costs that are actually coming into for this project. So they're out at least $200,000 for the acquisition, plus any of those other sort of
Because we talked about paying the mechanic liens and tax penalties in cities, and I'm thinking, okay, bad boy, and that's it. And I'm going,
Supervisor, walking it through, if we were to just move forward with a straight foreclosure.
Karen Spiegel brings the point. That's why I called for the investigation. We got to get to the bottom of what happened. Why homeless kids, homeless moms are going to be starving, are going to be sleeping in their cars instead of sleeping in a hotel room under the emergency services or getting into permanent housing or something. that this happened. Like she said, well, it looks like they're just getting a slap on the wrist and don't do that. They should be barred. Anyone that was associated with this, Inflection Point, SBX, Corey Jackson, from ever getting a dime or being associated with any project, with any sort of government public funds, at a minimum. And if they didn't dot an I or cross a T, there should be indictments, prosecutions, grand jury hearings, invoke the 602 grand jury statute on Corey Jackson and Ulysses Cabrera and everyone else. You can't just say no to, like Karen says, no, little boy, thou just was. This isn't just, you might want, you wrote your name in crayons on the refrigerator. Okay, that isn't cool, and mommy's got to clean it up, or she's going to make you clean it up. They are affecting people's lives. The people that desperately need the help, the people that are in dire circumstances. And Corey Jackson and Ulysses Cabrera are putting their thumbs, and the county of Riverside are putting their thumbs on them, pushing them down either further. Oh, let's crush every bit of life and spirit out of them when they're at their most vulnerable. Yet they say, oh, we care. Man, it's just, there really are no words that you can really truly describe the amount of evilness, cold-heartedness, that you will just stomp all over people in their greatest need just to say, oh, look at me, and promote myself. They got a Corey Jackson deal with the $5 million at the crime syndicate. Got to get to there and end the show today. That'll do it for today. We usually say at this time. Mandatory, you're back here in 23 hours wide. You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
The proceeding was a paid program.
All right, Roy, have fun.
You got it.
Bye now.